amount of our partners are here.
Great. Thanks, Sophia. And welcome, everybody. This is Charlie Zelli, Chair of the Met Council, and this is the Metro Blue Line Extension Corridor Management Committee. Welcome, everyone. Good to see you. Just to get things started, and as I usually say, no mystery. We're continuing to have virtual meetings, and we're able to do that because the pandemic is still with us. Hopefully, we will have a meeting in person yet this year. If you're a member of the public and are watching and have any comments or thoughts or questions, please feel free to post any comments directly to Sophia.Ginis, Ginis, at metrotransit.org. And we'll sure to include those questions and comments in our compilation, which is on the website. And the website is bluelineext.org. That's one word, bluelineext.org. And just to get started, maybe we can do our round of introductions that we're getting so good at. Those who are members or alternates for the committee, and I'll name the organization and we can get going. Let me start with my colleagues at the Met Council. Well, I haven't heard anyone, and maybe some will join us later. How about Hennepin County?
Good afternoon, everybody. Irene Fernando's here, Hennepin County Commissioner, District 2 and Rail Authority Chair. I'm not sure if Jeff is able to join, but I think Anna Schmiel is here from Commissioner Lundy's staff.
Oh, yes, I am here.
Hi, Anna. Thank you, Irene. All right, good to see you. How about Brooklyn Park? And I see we're being joined by Councilmember Reva Chambliss.
Hello.
Joining our Met Council group.
Yeah.
And Brooklyn Park, how about Crystal?
Hi, Jim Adams, Crystal Mayor. Welcome, everyone.
Hey, Mayor. Glad you and your...
Is that the deputy mayor there?
Well, your associate, I was going to say, deputy mayor, perhaps?
Just for a moment. She's just for a moment.
Well, we appreciate all inputs. How about Robbinsdale?
Thanks, Chairman Zelli. Bill Blonigan, Robbinsdale Mayor.
Hey, Mayor. Good to see you.
George Selman, Robbinsdale City Council and alternate.
Hey, George. And I see also we've been joined by Councilmember Lilligren, who's with the Met Council.
Thank you.
Also, Golden Valley is...
Jillian Rosenquist, alternate for Mayor Shaparis.
Lovely. Welcome. And the city of Minneapolis.
I'm here representing Minneapolis Parks. My name is Becca Thompson, but I don't know anyone from the city who's here.
Well, Becca, I want to introduce you. I know you are new to this committee, representing the park board, and welcome. I'm really thrilled as a commissioner, you are joining this group, and everybody, well, I'll speak on behalf of everybody. Welcome. Glad you could be joining us.
I'm glad to be here.
How about
my name's Bethany Turnwall. I'm here on behalf of Councilmember Ellison. He'll be joining us shortly.
Oh, thanks, Bethany. How about the Blue Line Coalition?
Good afternoon, everyone. Denise Butler here with Blue Line Coalition and also representing African Career Education and Resource Inc.
Great, thanks, Denise. Welcome. And our Community Advisory Committee.
Hi, Jason Greenberg, co-chair for the CAC.
Hey, Jason.
Hi, this is Tim Baylor, representing the Robbinsdale Chamber.
Hey, Tim, and you're representing also the the Business Advisory Committee.
That is correct.
Right. Anyone else from the CAC or the BAC? All right. How about the Metropolitan Airports Commission?
Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, Chair Zali. Bridget Reed with the Metropolitan Airports Commission, Planning and Development.
Welcome, Bridget.
Oh, sorry. I believe we have Felicia on from the BAC. We just couldn't hear her.
Oh, I'm sorry, Felicia. We know we're going to hear from you. There you are. I see you. I'm not hearing the audio this time. But welcome. How about MnDOT? Maybe they'll be coming. And Metro Transit?
Morning, Chair. Ned Thompson, Deputy General Manager of Capital Programs at Metro Transit.
Anybody I missed? I see that we have a council member.
Yep. Jeremiah Ellison here, Ward
Ellison.
5, Minneapolis. Happy to be here. Thank you all.
Good to see you. Thanks for attending. All right, let's get to the minutes from December 17th, which was our last CMC meeting. Are there any edits, corrections? We sent those out in advance. And if not, maybe we can get approval. And I assume there could be a motion and a second.
Mayor Blonigan, move approval.
Thank you.
Mayor Adams, second.
Thank you, Mayor. Dawn, will you call the roll?
Councilmember Lilligren,
Aye.
Councilmember Chambliss,
Aye.
Commissioner Fernando,
Aye.
Member Rosenquist,
Commissioner Lundy, just on behalf of him. No, I say aye.
Sure.
Councilmember Rosenquist,
Aye.
Mayor Flanagan,
Aye.
Mayor Adams,
Aye.
Commissioner Becca Thompson,
Aye.
Denise Butler,
Aye.
Bridget Reed,
Aye.
Jason Greenberg,
Aye.
Alicia Berry. Her sound isn't working.
He says aye in chat.
Okay. Tim Baylor.
Here.
And Chair Zeli.
Aye. Those minutes are approved. We have a lot of really good updates and information today. I just want to make a few comments before we start. Maybe a little news, and also maybe start with kind of an acknowledgement. I think these are really hard times in our communities this winter, and certainly even this past few weeks, this month. We're starting Black History Month, but in a time when there's a great deal of pain in our communities, certainly with the deaths of Amir Locke in Minneapolis, Jamari Rice in Richfield. Every day I see a picture in the paper, and this is more than pictures. These are people and part of our communities. So I think as a larger community, we're grieving in so many different places throughout our cities. And so I just want to acknowledge that and know that that's affected many in this room. And so I really want to express my personally how badly we feel, I feel, and I think we are facing heartbreak at a time we're actually trying to lean in to create safe places. And part of what is heart-wrenching is for all, despite all of our hard work, we kind of witnessed more heartbreak. So I really appreciate everybody showing up. I think that I realize what a privilege it is to sometimes check away, and we really can't turn away. We have to face head on some of these incredibly wrenching realities. So with that, I also want to acknowledge that we have so many people here who are really committing to increased community investment, and I'm really happy that our administration, Governor Waltz, Lieutenant Governor Peggy Flanagan, actually initiated a recommendation toward the Blue Line with a $200 million proposal just in January, really a few weeks ago, as part of their Move Minnesota Forward, legislative proposals. And I just have to say that is a tremendous vote of confidence for this project, for the importance of it, and knowing that it really is a state priority, and that should fill us with some resolve and confidence. I think that there's no question that this is such important work that we want to endorse, not just bricks and mortar capital, but more importantly, the results that we think this transit corridor can provide for communities. Working families, people of color, I think it really helps define what these priorities can be, particularly as we face underinvested areas of the metro area, such as what Blue Line is directly engaged with. So I think we should feel good about that. It's going to continue always to be a struggle, but advancing this work and the fact that every time this committee meets, everybody's here, so we know that we have the resolve to complete what we're starting. I certainly have to acknowledge the news about the Green Line extension, the settlement agreement that was authorized, that actually acknowledges cost increases, delays, and additional funding that's going to be required. And I just know that Met Council and Hennepin County are frustrated, but also committed to seeing this project completed. It is certainly, these large mega projects don't come without your risk and without challenges, and everyone has different risks. I think one thing, it's curious in retrospect, we decided 2 years ago to move this Blue Line away from the BNSF corridor, which seemed to make so much sense. But now I'm thinking about what a corridor protection barrier, a crash wall, would cost if we actually had to build one 8 miles. And if you extrapolate it based upon the Green Line's experience, that would be another $800 million. So I think we will have a much kind of I hate to say the word cleaner, but a more direct route with a Blue Line with no tunnels and no co-location. So we have that going for us, and maybe that's good lessons learned. I also think one of the things we have in common with all transit investments is the opportunity to make a real difference in helping resolve some economic disparities for underserved communities, as I mentioned. I really want to acknowledge some of the efforts we're having here in this group toward advancing the anti-displacement kind of priority, and that really is allowing economic benefit to come for all people in the communities, and frankly, this is a way for us to deliver once in a generation kind of investment in a good way. And I really hats off to everyone here. Commissioner Fernando and I have been speaking. We had a recent meeting with the US DOT to talk about some of our experiences and commitment, and I think we're getting a lot of attention and in a good way toward some of the priorities for this CMC. So stay tuned on that. We're going to hear more on that subject later in the meeting. But let's get on to the substance, and we want to have an interesting conversation. But first, let's have a chance to hear from our CAC, BAC co-chairs. I know, Jason, you're here, as well as Felicia. So do you have some reports you'd like to share?
Yes, thank you for the opportunity, and thanks for the comments to start the call. So we had our meeting last week, and there was a lot of discussion regarding the draft report comments we're going to see and discuss today. The big feedback that I picked up on was just around like how the comments are grouped together when we look at this discussion, and just like, you know, using those groupings to help us get answers back to the community. There were some concerns around the common themes and just making sure that they accurately reflect the meetings and the feedback, and we talked about that a little bit. And then there was a comment around for businesses between stations, just kind of discussing upfront winners and losers as far as on the line that, you know, obviously focusing in on the stations and businesses close to stations is going to be a big win, but what about between stations? And then we moved on to discussing the anti-displacement work group and Cura, and there was a discussion about who Cura is talking to as we build the working groups, like what are their knowledge and opinions of the project, and there were some questions and just discussion around actions that might be happening in advance, so kind of getting in front of the work that they're doing right now. And I think it's, you know, we can talk about it, but that came up in our group, as well as just the pace of the anti-displacement work group, and, you know, asking if that's going to impact the overall timeline. Are we going to slow down based on that, or, you know, how does that impact the pace? So those were some of the conversations and some of the areas that we focused on in our CAC meeting this month.
That's really helpful. Quite a balancing act on this timing issue. I got that. Yeah. Felicia?
Are you able to hear me now?
Oh, you can. Yes.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Chairman Zelli. So the report from the Business Advisory Committee, we met last week on the 10th. Similar to the Community Advisory Committee, we reviewed the draft report, including the comments from the draft report, as well as gotten an update from the anti-placement work group. And similar to the CAD, there were questions raised about, well, particularly about the engagement process, questions about who was paid. And so people were rightfully, you know, to know a bit more about how engagement had gone, insights from that, as well as what the future engagement might look around this project. Let's see, was any other comments? Oh, the folks were, I think I mentioned this. People had questions about who was surveyed, particularly because, you know, decisions need to be made in Minneapolis or Northwest, particularly about which route. And there are, you know, different some strong opinions about that. So folks were wondering if the businesses in that particular area were surveyed, etc. I think that's all I have. I'm checking over my notes. I don't see anything extra. Missed anything? Folks who were there, please go ahead and add to them. Thank you.
Thank you, Felicia. Any other comments or maybe questions from the committee? All right, appreciate your reports. I think that takes us to our draft report comment overview. And as everyone knows, in December, staff released the draft route modification report, and the comments were received until well up to January 25th. So I've mentioned this before, but it really hats off to the staff who've used multiple ways to make connections postcards, old technology, new technology, message boards, public meetings, BIPOC media outlets, just to name some of them. And so it's good to get a report, and we're going to hear from our project leads, Sophia and Dan. I don't know who's up first, but jump in.
I am Chair. I will take it away if that sounds good. So today, what Dan and I will do is kind of walk through all the comments that we received on the draft reports. We've kind of split up the comments in terms of those that we received from the public, so individuals, businesses, things like that, as well as those that are received from our municipalities, and Dan will go into that a little bit deeper. So as I kind of lead us in, we received close to 500 comments on the report itself. And I just want to really emphasize that this work is building upon the engagement work that we've been doing. So when we get to the final report, it's not that we forgot about comments in the past phase. We are, pulling those themes and things that we've been hearing from the community consistently throughout our entire work. The comment period just gives us a new piece of information for the community to react to, and that's what I will be focusing on today and kind of reporting out to all of you. So with that, we received about 132 comments from comment forms, some from email. We got their agency letters, and also just want to point out we have this interactive map, and calling that out specifically because it's been a tool that we've really used to make the project accessible. The community engagement cohort has really utilized the map as a tool to get comments, and so we use that as a way to continue to get active feedback from our communities. We also had a series of public meetings, both in person and virtual, and we got about 55 comments from those meetings. More people than that attended, but those were the folks that left us with comments. To give a little bit of a flavor of just using the interactive map where we're getting comments from, is that you'll see, a lot of it is centered in Minneapolis, partly because there's a decision to be made there. So kind of almost 200 comments from Minneapolis on the interactive map, and a lot of our comments received kind of reflect a similar distribution of percentages from municipalities. I see a lot of conversation in Robbinsdale, Brooklyn Park, other places as well. As we kind of go look through this, there's been a few themes that have kind of permeated what we've been hearing. And, one of those, and I'll call it in the comments coming up, but just the related infrastructure, how LRTs benefit from connections to ped and bike facilities and overall safety, and also this kind of equity lens. We have it as part of our goals, but people also really reflect to us, make choices that consider people with zero car households, or how we really increase regional mobility and access to major destinations that people are going to. We got, and then in the comments too, and we'll kind of pull this out throughout the presentation, is people also asked for new information on specific things, and we'll talk about how we're going to reflect that later. In the next few slides, I'm going to go through our goals and kind of the comments that we received as related to the goals. We really want to treat the public's comments to us as data, as a major input that needs action on. And so what you'll kind of see as I go through the next slides is us taking those comments, relating them to the project goals, and that really helps us ensure that our final report addresses what the public is bringing to us. But before I jump into all of that, just want to give just a general summary of the types of comments that we received. And I'll first call out this box of general support or opposition. And what I mean by that is that we wanted this comment period to feel accessible. It's a big technical report, but we want people to give us their feedback, whether it's one line or not. Or multiple pages. So the general support or opposition kind of falls in that people are writing us very small, short things that are important to them, either in opposition or support. A lot about minimizing impacts, thinking about all the investments that make LRT great. Again, serving zero car households or in destinations, connecting to other services and whatnot. So the next few slides will there's overall comments and kind of things specific to areas, and I'll kind of touch on those. I'll touch on those briefly. And just, one of the things that we heard in terms of the goal of really improving transit access and connections to jobs was that this investment's needed. People want to get places, and a little bit of what happens to the routes that aren't selected. People really leaning into things like park and rides being accessible or walkable, and the connection to trail networks kind of in Area 1. As we move down into Crystal and Robbinsdale, thinking about serving your business districts and starting to get specific feedback about how various park and ride locations would serve the community. In the Lowry portion of the corridor, we just want to kind of pull out, we get comments along the lines of, it's an opportunity to have stations along Washington Avenue because it's an underdeveloped part and people would like to see things happen by the river. At the same token, you get concerns about that the location is currently fairly industrial and people have to cross over the freeway to access it. And so, reflecting that might feel cut off from neighborhoods. Or there's a little bit of a sense in the comments that maybe Lowry bypasses some of the most major places that you want to get in North Minneapolis. While others are also noting that Lowry also serves a lot of folks with zero car households and has the potential to serve potentially a new development. And the West Broadway area, just really in terms of connections to regional destinations, right? Just noting that the West Broadway is kind of the vibrant cultural heart of North Minneapolis, and people often referenced specific locations that they want to get to, and thinking about how that could benefit local businesses as well. On the concern side, the pedestrian environment, you'll see that comment kind of perpetrate throughout of what we heard. When we think about kind of the reliability and frequency of transit, I'd say that's where we've bucketed a lot of our comments about, well, if you elevate the LRT, would that make for a better transit experience or have less impacts to cars and things like that? In the Crystal area, we heard a lot of folks, thinking about how they get into downtown or other places kind of along the way quickly. In Robbinsdale, thinking about, not just the reliability of LRT, but other emergency responses and things like that, and thinking about how support as well, thinking about how you can improve the experience on buses today. Going into the Minneapolis area, you kind of see how even as people are thinking about specific areas, similar comments are heard in various parts of our route. So, just like you got comments in the northern part of the line about traffic and in congestion, you hear that too when you reach into Minneapolis. And, on Lowry in particular, we got a fair amount of comments about 10th Avenue and the tightness and congestion that is possibly there. With West Broadway, people saw the opportunity. It's an efficient route. And so that's both folks talking about reaching North Minneapolis and where they want to reach and having that be very efficient, as well as just an overall efficient route. And again, traffic and what that means for folks. So this goal 3, when we talk about providing transit that maximize benefits while being economically competitive, this is where we bucketed a lot of the comments that were kind of that general opposition or concern. Your themes about the value of LRT or spending money on things that seem to have been invested in. So whether that's redoing a roadway or whatnot. Going into the supporting the community development goals, goal 4, we heard the most from the community in more the Brooklyn Park area and the Minneapolis area on this particular goal. And, just building upon Brooklyn Park's work to really think of TOD and what could happen in the cities, and hearing support from their residents on that. And in the Minneapolis area, thinking on Lowry, thinking about how you would build upon the business nodes that exist today, as well as a desire to see additional affordable housing and people noting kind of vacant areas that would be maybe great for some of that. On West Broadway, really emphasizing that it's an important commercial corridor, and that if done right, investment could really help in that area, but you gotta do it right. And in even places for additional residential or business development as well. And, comes through very strongly, but making sure that development benefits existing communities and businesses, that we're supporting small and BIPOC owned businesses in particular. As we get to goal 6, goal 5, about promoting healthy communities and sound environmental practices. This is where we bucket a lot of our comments about, getting to stations and making sure that it feels safe as a pedestrian. And people also have creative ideas of, our charging and parking rides, and thinking about how the stations themselves can help with community cohesion. This is where folks leaned into, again, the healthy communities means folks can get around their communities and walk and bike. And so we heard that throughout, whether that's, desire for connections, maybe in the Crystal Brooklyn Park area, as well as, comments on pedestrian bridges and things like that. People also noting, in the draft report, we talked about potential concerns. So community reflected that back to us as well, of, pulling out important institutions like North Memorial Hospital. In the Minneapolis area, again, you see how things in one community also matter a lot to other communities in different contexts, but in the same way. So how do those stations, how does it feel for the pedestrian environment? We heard that on both routes. One of the things as folks were commenting on in Minneapolis as well, and on West Broadway, is thinking about how if increased transit options could help folks get rid of cars, improve air quality, by preventing emissions, that was an important goal that folks wanted to see in the city. And also the desire to calm traffic and really kind of lean into some of these other modes. In goal 6, which is, really about working to reduce disparities. I think one of the things that came out very clearly is the need and desire to see investment in places that have historically been underinvested in, and kind of people really kind of challenging on us to push that needle. And this is also where we kind of bucket a lot of the concerns about displacement. You'll hear later from Terrence on our anti-displacement initiatives, but really want to reflect within the project goals themselves. That we want to make sure to be acknowledging that concern and thinking of pathways forward. Around that, people, highlighted investment opportunities for us, and both in the positive as well as things like concern about parking or whatnot, and trying to think of giving us ways that. Like, for example, if there's vacant property, that would be an opportunity to lean into on like, for example, on Lowry. So a lot of things heard from community, a lot of things built upon, and we'll just continue to analyze and pull that forward and elevate what we're hearing from our business and residential partners along the way. And so I will turn it over to Dan now to specifically highlight some of what we've been hearing from our municipal partners.
Thanks. Thanks, Sophia. Yeah, Chair and others really want to give a good amount of credit to Sophia and Joan Van Hala and their teams and the staffs that really worked hard with community, both with and then in partnership with community, with our community engagement cohorts. We had the opportunity to present this information earlier this week to FTA at a check-in. We talked a lot about the ways we went about getting outreach over this year. We were clear, they were clear with us early, late in 2019, 2020, late in 2020, as we took this on. Don't rush this process. Do a good community engagement process. And as we reported to them, I think they felt that we really, as a project team, went over and above in doing different methodologies in the time of, you know, not just big groups getting together. We're really kind of different in the ways we attacked some of this. And I think it shows. We did get a lot of feedback from people in a lot of different ways. And that's been very helpful to us as a project team moving this forward. Also on our project team as well is the work we've done with our municipalities. And similar to the way we advanced this project for many years, we've had regular check-ins with certainly Robbinsdale, Crystal, Brooklyn Park, and Minneapolis. Those 4 municipalities. We've also had some check-ins with Golden Valley and Maple Grove along the way as well as we've gone forward. And so the feedback we got on the draft report from our municipal partners is very appreciative and very key in helping to move this forward. So we received 4 or 5 letters and or resolutions from municipalities on the project with feedback. And while all of those are certainly available, here's some, we rolled up some key points from that feedback. And we wanted to kind of touch base on those so that so the other project partners and municipalities could get an understanding on what we're hearing from all of the others. And so in Brooklyn Park, we received from the city their continued support of the route change from the BNSF Railroad to County Road 81, which happens in their city on the very north side. Most of the alignment, as you know, continues along West Broadway, where it wasn't on railroad right away before, but it does transition to Highway 81 in the north part of the city. They also identified 2 things that they want to keep on our radar as we continue to move the project forward. One of them is, you know, the continued evaluation of how pedestrian access at the 63rd station will work. That station will move from railroad right away to Highway 81 right away. So it'll be in the center of Highway 81. How we get pedestrians there, how we get them from the parking structure, the park and ride structure that's there at 63rd to that station is a key element. Secondly, they're also keeping on our radar the idea that as we do the flyover from the center of 81 at 73rd over 81 and transitioning to West Broadway, the property that is necessary for that will result in potential redevelopment opportunities after light rail is built. And so to keep that on the front burner as well. And so those are 2 pieces that will continue to advance as we move forward. With the city of Crystal, they sent back a resolution with a number of factors. The 2 key pieces I want to bring up that they've wanted to make sure stays on our radar about Highway 81 and Crystal. The transition is all from the railroad right away to Highway 81 to the east. In that case, in that piece, continuing to understand the mobility challenges of the 6-lane road that's there and a potential 4-lane, what works, how do the intersections operate, how will that be configured, and how that advances, as well as continued input engineering and environmental work on an at-grade option, which we've laid out an at-grade option at 63rd and 81 with a pedestrian structure, pedestrian bridge, and access, and an interchange option, which grade separates Highway 81 over Bass Lake Road and puts the station at grade in and about that interchange. So those two, continuing discussion about how we deal with the Bass Lake Road intersection and how we deal with 81 in general. And that will be certainly continued work as early as this evening at a work session we have with the Crystal City Council, and continuing on as we go through the environmental process of looking at these various options for 81 and how to mitigate impacts from those ideas. So that's Brooklyn Park and Crystal. In Robbinsdale, we also received a resolution and a letter looking for a number of different things and commenting on a number of different parts in the report. One is that they thought about looking separately at Robbinsdale, then the downtown Robbinsdale section, then the section to the north. And I think if you remember when we laid out Area 1, Area 2, and Area 3, we laid out Area 2 as everything that went from the very north part of Brooklyn Park through 63rd all the way down to North Memorial. That's where we were on Railroad right away, and we transitioned to 81. We agree with Robbinsdale that there certainly is a differentiation between north of Highway 100 and south of Highway 100. So in the final report, we're going to move to a 2A and a 2B, and we're going to talk about 2A being the segment north of Highway 100, and then 2B being the section of the alignment south of Highway 100, essentially through downtown Robbinsdale over to North Memorial Hospital. It's still on 81 rather than on the railroad, but much further away from BNSF tracks in a much different environment. The roadway changes from 6 lanes to 4 lanes in there. It's a downtown environment. It's a different piece. We're going to evaluate those separately and carry those two pieces forward as a 2A and a 2B in the report. Robbinsdale also asked us to look at a no-build option evaluated as part of the report. And while we are in agreement with that eventually being done, it isn't really part of the draft route selection report. When we move into the environmental process, obviously comparing the build alternative to the no build will be part of our draft and then final supplemental environmental impact work. And so that's where that will take place. So it will provide, based on impacts of a chosen route, a no build in that. And so we would take that on as well. The other piece that we don't have on here, Robbinsdale talked about different ways of looking at the feasibility and maybe bringing on some outside help to look at the feasibility of light rail on 81. And that's something we're working with them on as well about how to kind of go about a contract for that, or how to attack that work. So that's what we've heard from Robbinsdale. I see Bridget put in the chat about the MAC and the interchange option at Bass Lake Road. And I believe we have begun those discussions, Bridget, with the team, and we can verify that as well. But we've been working with the team from MAC on the various options in and around the Crystal Airport, and we'll continue to advance that work as well.
Sounds good to me. Thank you.
In Minneapolis, the response from Minneapolis laid out a number of additional points that they wanted us to dive a little deeper into the nuts and bolts and numbers and quantifications, especially as they relate to how West Broadway compares to Lowry. And of course, in this segment, the recommended report, the recommendations for the route is going to go so far as to recommend to move forward either a West Broadway or a West Broadway Lindale route versus a Lowry Washington Avenue route. And therefore, we want to be very clear on the pros and cons and the reasons why we are recommending to advance the route that we're recommending. So they're asking for a little more work and a little deeper dive, and we're working on those elements weekly with the city to get those facts out there. A lot of that is background material. Not all of it is very right on to the eyes, evident in the report. And so we're making sure we kind of get that well documented and understood on what those recommendations will be. So we continue to work with Minneapolis and their staff team on that. And then finally, we did get a request from Maple Grove. Maple Grove made some comments in the report, and they are saying they are interested in how the development of the Blue Line extension and the building of this particular project can potentially lead to a possible spur of some kind, either a spur line that links into or extends out of the Blue Line extension into Maple Grove. And so to that end, while we're not necessarily seeing a spur as part of this specific construction, we are certainly going to look at and include in the design the understanding of not prohibiting the ability and even potentially allowing for how a spur in some various manner could work off of this to also serve Maple Grove at some point in the future. And so this really wraps up then the information we heard from the municipalities. For those members of the CAC, want to thank your staffs for working closely with us, in some cases weekly, for the opportunities to have work sessions and pieces in front of us. And so we're really happy to do that. Looks like, Felicia, do we have a question? It looks like you got a question.
Yes, I did have a question, and thank you so much for that information, Dan. I feel like every time you all go over this is something new. So my question is, if the city of Minneapolis municipality mentioned anything around reparative justice work or any of the anti-displacement work or Harrison neighborhood, kind of the previous, how that turned out, this engagement, the previous proposed route and the impact that, did they speak out to any of that or the anti-displacement work?
Felicia, I would say that we hear and discuss those topics in city feedback all the time. I can't remember if any of those were directly addressed. The pieces I summarized for the screen today were the pieces that came directly as responses to the draft report. And so, Sophia, you may remember if any of those are addressed more specifically. I'm not sure they were, but I can say that continued discussions with especially the city of Minneapolis staff, as well as all of our communities, touches on those topics as well as we implement the project. Things like impacts during construction and how we continuously update the cities regularly on our advancing of anti-displacement work, the advancing of the equity work we're doing, and such. So we do have feedback with them on that regularly.
And we're going through the city basically on each goal. And so, examples of, goal 6, where you're speaking specifically to equity and disparity reduction, and, kind of pulling out those things, or even, sometimes I get my goal numbers messed up, 4 or 5. When we talk about the community's development goals, really kind of defining what that is and putting some information behind that. So I know, and don't want to speak for the city, but just, they've definitely heard the community and are reflecting that back and asking for some of the analysis that we do.
Thank you so much for that, and Sophia. And I'd be remiss if I didn't take this opportunity to elevate that many in community are concerned about making Harrison whole. And so we're thinking about even these project goals, the impacts are community-wide, and Harrison is a part of North Minneapolis. We wanted to be a part of North Minneapolis. They are our neighbor. And so, yeah, again, when we talk about the impacts, I know we really by the BLRT corridor or West Broadway, but Harrison has already suffered negative impact, which is why that very specifically reparative work around anti-displacement and all of that. And I'm hoping, because I can't remember if Abdi, someone from city, was on the call day, but that is a super important aspect of this project for those community that I'm talking and engaging with, and we're really interested in how the city is supporting that and want to co-create along with them. It could look like from that level to be able to address that as well. So I want to offer myself and others as well to that space and engagement with the city.
Alicia, thank you for that. And I can mention two things that on the displacement side, the anti-displacement working group will, as part of its work, analyze and take a look at Harrison neighborhood area as well as the current areas that are along the alignment on that side. On the transportation side, both Hennepin County and Met Council have been in and will be part of cooperation with MnDOT to look at transportation improvements and modifications to Highway 55 in the Harrison area, in the areas where we weren't able to continue to advance the Blue Line Extension project as we had hoped to previously. So there's a little bit of work going in both directions on that area.
Any other questions?
Yeah, turn it back to you.
Go ahead. Well,
I'd like to add to this point.
Sure, go ahead.
Yeah, thanks. And unfortunately, I have to leave early, so it's partly why I'm kind of jumping in here. So just really want to amplify what Felicia is sharing here. I happen to live in Harrison. We do consider ourselves part of North Minneapolis, the lows for any Northsiders who are on. But this comment that Felicia is bringing forward, which is consistent feedback that we've received, is also consistent with a comment in the chat from Councilmember Rosenquist that I'd like to amplify. I mean, essentially, the communities all along the alignment were outright promised a set of improvements, whether it was safety or pedestrian or otherwise, that perhaps it is time for a centralized conversation on that, just to make sure that it really raises to Met Council and MnDOT's attention to ensure that the residents along the corridor who partnered alongside this project for decades receive the well-earned amenities that they were promised and that we were promised. And so I just wanted to amplify that and connect, although different portions of the alignment, still kind of a similar sentiment. And its connectivity, I think Felicia was also kind of referencing some adjacent advocacy that I believe has been called Bring Back the Sixth. I'm certain many individuals on this call are a part of that work. And so that's, really recognizing displacement that had occurred previously, so I think that's calling the question a little bit of, there's anti-displacement measures moving forward. What about the ways that we might want to think about displacement that might have occurred, in this same physical area? So no direct question or direct answers here, but just wanted to amplify and connect those points. And I'll be stepping off at some point in the next few minutes and want to thank everybody for their time. Thanks, Charlie.
Hey, thanks, Irene, for those comments, and also for lifting up Councilmember Rosenquist's comment in the chat about some of the other improvements that were kind of set up and now are kind of sitting there.
If I could.
Yeah, go ahead.
I'll be short. I just want to affirm what Felicia and Commissioner Fernando just said, and just encourage that for more coordination on those two discussions. I think that community members are really afraid that the extension is going to move along, and that when it comes to improvements on Olson Highway, they're going to be left to fend for themselves, so to speak. And so I really just want to encourage that there be some more coordination in these conversations. And so I think we're doing a lot of great work. There's not a criticism of the work that's been done thus far, but just wanted to affirm what Commissioner Fernando and Felicia Perry both held up.
Yeah, I appreciate that, council member. And this is a good place to keep this in front of us to ensure that we're being mindful, and appreciate those comments. Any other thoughts, questions?
Flanagan has his hand raised.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I didn't see that. Go ahead.
So a number of things really quickly to limit the number of times I get in, some of which you don't need to be addressed today. They're just observations. First of all, thanks to Dan Solar and the team for considering Robbinsdale's request that we be allowed to get an engineering consulting firm and have it paid for much through the system, much like the anti-displacement consultants are being paid for. Secondly, the Robbinsdale connection from one side to the other could be over the Highway 81, but it could be under. We don't care as long as it's the best thing that works. The build, no build option, if we've already spent $100 million investigating this, which I'm just making up that number, and the governor wants us to have another $200 million and we'd spend that, I suggest that maybe we've gone past the no build part as far as the recommendation goes in the future when there's already been X $100 million spent. The crash wall, good comment and an excellent thing to consider. Don't know if a crash wall is really necessary for us or if that's a BNSF thing. And maybe it would have been better to buy the whole rail corridor for the 12 miles rather than put up a $100 million crash wall. And then MnDOT, I don't know if you comment today about whether or not the BLRT extension people have as of yet a position or thoughts on the possible legislation that says, oh, let's have MnDOT supervise the building of the BLRT extension rather than Met Council.
Thank you, Mayor. Good comments. I will mention just briefly on that, because that was just something that I think Met Council's, just in the past 24 hours. I will say that MnDOT and Met Council have been close collaborators on all these projects. And as for now, Met Council is the agency of record for the federal government, FTA. So we want to make sure we keep that, whatever happens, to get the best result, that we don't lose our place in line. But also, I think certainly ways that we can consider governance for these large projects to improve the outcomes, everybody should be open to that. But we won't lose the momentum, the work we're doing now, and we certainly don't want to have this blue line be at all, sidetracked. So that's just my thoughts, just to give you a sense. But thanks for your comments. Anyone else? Dan and Sophia, thank you. I mean, this really kind of shows the kind of where the community is and where our cities are, and there's a pretty big range. I mean, some of them are nothing small, but some of them is about this lane or that bridge, and some of them are really big concepts. And I think that's where we should be right now. So it's really instructive. I know this is going to continue. We'll have even opportunity for reaction to comments. I think we're all looking forward to a final route recommendation report later in the spring, and that will certainly be something else that we will be reacting to. There's not any other comments. Let's jump to the update on our anti-displacement working group. And I know Terrence might be late.
I'm here.
You are here. Lovely.
Yeah.
Hey, Terrence. Good to see you. And for everybody who might be new, Kira, we keep saying Kira. And I remember thinking the first time I heard that, I was like, what's this Kira? Is this a new spice? And it is. It's the Center for Urban and Regional Affairs. And we're really lucky that Terrence has been leading this work for us. We're going to get an update on the anti-displacement working group, and we're actually starting research. So take it away, Terrence.
That's right. Yeah, thanks for having me, Chair Zelli. It's really good to be with all of you. It's good to be able to provide this update. You know, they're probably not the juicy updates that everybody's looking forward to, but you've got to build the foundation before you kind of see the beautiful house on top of it. And I think this group knows how important foundation is. And so, you know, what we've been doing a lot of recently is tons and tons of interviews of potential anti-displacement working group members. Huge shout out to Felicia Perry from the chair of the Business Advisory Committee for joining our staff to take up a ton of her time. I just can't say how much I appreciate her. But we've been interviewing members. We had the timeline set for around February 11th. There was some reschedule, so we'll be doing a couple early next week. But I think we'll have the community members pretty much set by mid next week. And we're looking at our orientation in late February, as long as that works for everybody's schedule. But we'll lock that down once we get all the members in there as well. So in the next couple of weeks, we'll have our first anti-displacement working group meeting, which is, the big fireworks kickoff, which we're super excited about. Just want to remind folks where we are on the schedule. We're not doing a month-to-month schedule. We're doing those full Saturday meetings, centered around 4 of them. I have them listed approximately where those dates will be. Again, we'll solidify which week within those months once the anti-displacement working group members are all in place. And you can also see sort of the topics that we'll be talking about when. And so, to the last conversation, the lessons from existing Blue Line and Green Line, including Blue Line extension planning, to the last conversation that Felicia, Commissioner Fernando, and Councilmember Ellison were just talking about, a big part of understanding what happened in Harrison is a big part of that. So I just wanted to flag that for the group and for that conversation. But you can also see that we'll be talking about other things as well. I'll talk a little bit about more how the research has begun in just a second. But the big part, another big part is when is this going to become more and more visible in community, the work that we're doing. And so planning that overall outreach and engagement on the project. So speaking of that, jumping to the next slide. Let's see. So I just wanted to bring the slide back. I didn't change the words on the slide. This is a slide that I've presented to this group before, but just wanted to center around, again, our intentions around, working alongside organizing and with community. And, the big part of it, our research team, along with, the cohort that y'all have convened on the alignment side of the conversation, but now it's going to be blended alignment and this anti-displacement working group conversation, is that you'll probably just see us be much more close to the overall engagement of the project. It's really hard for community to kind of decipher between when to talk about alignment, when to talk about our construction, and when to talk about anti-displacement working, anti-displacement centered stuff. Those conversations are going to have together. And so wanting to make sure that, as a project and us viewing ourselves, we're part of this project as well too, that we're communicating the same things. When y'all are asking, or when the project is asking questions to community, that we're not double asking when we go back around to do the qualitative research. And so we're aligning around that. We've had some good meetings recently in that construction. But again, around those same Saturday times, or those big Saturday meetings, are also going to be big points of when we're in community. So kind of culminate with the big, or sort of the flashpoint will be with those full Saturday meetings with the anti-displacement working group, but then we'll also be doing stuff along the corridor for people in community outside of that as well too. So want to create that expectation, create that interest, of course, for the folks who are part of the individual cities or governments. If it ever makes sense for us to be part of any of your planned engagement around this project, then let's chat. Let us help if we can support, if we can bring the anti-displacement work stuff to that engagement as well. Happy to do that. Of course, working with Sophia and Kathy Gold and Joan Van Holla and all those folks to kind of tie into the traditional outreach of this project as well. So going to the next slide, we're about the formation of the anti-displacement working group. I just want to give you an update on the interviews. We're interviewing about 50 people. There's about 70 applications as a whole, but we're interviewing about 50. That discrepancy from interviews to interviews largely has to do, there are some folks, there's a lot of interest in this work, y'all. I'll just say that. There's a lot of interest, but that also meant that people from St. Paul, who didn't necessarily have a connection, or out throughout the region who didn't necessarily have a connection to the project. Also applied, South Metro, all the, basically the whole region applied. And so just knowing our ability to interview all the folks that we really needed to interview, we just had to say no to interviews with some folks. There's also, so basically we took the 50 candidates that we think would be, had the best chance of getting it, and we've been interviewing it. Know that there was representation from the full corridor, very diverse racially, diverse in experience, socioeconomic outcome. There was a lighter representation in Crystal, though there was some folks in there too. Business owners, not, renters, homeowners. The group was pretty diverse. It's going to be really hard to make a decision about I'll just say it's going to be really, really hard. It's the best of problems to have. But it's really hard to choose. I mean, it's really an outstanding group of folks. A lot of people who have not been connected to this project in any other way, right? They may have just shown up to a public meeting. They might have only been watching this project from afar and never have shown up in public comments or of course part of any of the committees. So we reached a broad range of people. So I think we can feel pretty proud about that. We're looking to identify those philanthropic representatives. I think we've already found some within this group. These are the 4 foundations that we're targeting because of the mix, but also interest around this work. Say Headwaters, right? They're really focused on people power and just people having the capacity to communicate their vision. To, of course, these other groups who will be focused on business-centered displacement or businesses or housing or just in general are interested in anti-displacement stuff. And so bringing them into this. Governments identifying your representatives, check your emails. You probably got an email from me very recently. I apologize, it took so long. There's a miscommunication in our office about who was doing it. So when I thought it had been sent and hadn't, so we caught that and we got those out to you. I know some of you have already identified your representatives nonetheless, or already thought about your internal working groups. But just know in your email, Chair Zelli, there's an email from me to you and other folks in this room as well. You don't have to, but yeah.
I printed out the letter already, Terrence.
There we go. I love it. I love it. Framing it in your office, whatever you want to do, sounds great to me. So yeah, we'll be identifying all these group members and continuing this interview process just for a little bit longer, but I would expect us to have all the members identified very, very soon. So going to the next slide. So in the research plan, again, this is a slide that you've seen, but wanted to highlight in green what we've already begun to do. Remembering though that we are solidifying the research agenda with the anti-displacement working group in the first meeting. That's part of the first meeting agenda. But there's things that we proposed to y'all that we would study, and we've begun those things. So right, it's the review of the best practices of anti-displacement policy locally and nationally. We've begun the case study of the existing green and blue lines, as well as what happened in the blue line planning. We're beginning that thorough baseline study of a blue line extension corridor. And then the big qualitative piece where there'll be lots of interviews and focus groups and all those different sort of things that it will happen in the needs assessment for investment in the corridor. We're in the beginning stages of that. That's probably the least developed of the 4 things that are up there, but it's also because it's showing up later as a presentation to the public later on, again, going back to that earlier schedule. But just know, looking at that Big 4 that Saturday schedule will also help you clue in when we might be going to community to talk in community about what, like you say, if you look in the month or 2 prior to those months where we'll have those full Saturday meetings. So just wanted to let you know we're on the move. And so again, if there's a question that y'all have in your individual governments or within your individual organizations, right, that you want to make sure that brings nuance to any of these items or even a new item, like we're still open to that conversation. I'm just going to keep letting y'all know what we're building to let you know what we're going to come back to share with you a little bit later. This was a beautiful slide that was created by Kathy Gold, who is amazing. And this came from the Public Works Steering Committee, aligning, kind of talked about what the goals of that community, the objectives of that community is, expanding wealth building opportunities, create sustainable community vision development, increase access to and skills for sustaining jobs, amplifying the success and vibrancy of culture and community assets, And then below that, you can see the themes by which we'll be talking about at the Anti-Displacement Working Group. You know, I know that there's folks out there who are like, what's the practicality of this event that we're doing? What's the practicality? What's the implementable aspects of this anti-displacement work? I love this slide because it's trying to and continue to reify to communicate the relevance of this work. So I think your continued interest in general, right? And of course, it has a particular manifestation within the Blue Line extension, but just in general, we're interested in the same things that y'all are interested in, right? And so just again, reifying with the self-interest for all the different stakeholders of this project into this anti-displacement work. We're in that slow ramp up, but then it's going to be a big explosion. And I don't want anybody surprised about the conversations that we're having. And so again, just want to sort of put this out there for folks to think about, again, to see how it fits within the context of your everyday work and kind of continued and general interest around this project and to see how it connects into this anti-displacement work as well. So yeah, that's my my update for now. Again, we're building that foundation, digging out the ground, making sure we're on solid ground before we are very quickly going to be getting into the juicy part of the work with the Anti-Displacement Working Group meeting later this month or in a couple of weeks. So yeah, thanks for having me. Sure, if there's any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Any questions, thoughts? I don't see anybody. Thank you, Terrence. Yep. We're certainly looking forward to the juicy parts. Boy, you know, given the amount of interest in being on the committee, and I know it's foundational and you're getting it right, but if that shows the level of interest there are on behalf of the community for in this whole process, so congratulations. And I also think as much as community members want to see some tangible ideas, we all are, as you mentioned, but I think again, this is balancing act from going too fast or going too slow, and we're doing it deliberately, and I think that's the right approach.
Felicia has her hand up.
Oh, Felicia, who I understand is doing so much work here. Great shout out to you. Go ahead, Felicia.
Thank you so much, and thank you for allowing me to be a part of the process as far as the interviews for the anti-displacement work. I am learning a lot, not just about people lots about the project, but really about different people in my community and other communities super interested in making sure we have an equitable process. We have a just process. So what I wanted to just add, I don't know how much Terrence kind of touched on this, there were really amazing insights and that have come out of these interviews, particularly when it came up an overarching question from folks at the end of the interviews has been around the timing of this anti-displacement group being in place and starting work on this, and then the timing of, say, this final report coming out, as particularly the decision around which route would best in Area 3 / North Minneapolis. And so, and to kind of get to the folk where like the timing as we understand it right now is that we're expecting sometime next month for a decision to be made about, is it going to go down Lowry or is it going to go down West Broadway? And their concerns were that this anti-displacement work in the highest impact area hasn't happened beforehand. And it doesn't feel like it's happening at the same pace as that's part of the project is move forward. And so I did elevate that because there were people that like that is a question like each day that I'm in a few of those interviews. But yeah, other than that, as Terrence said, the diversity, very impressive. The diversity of people who are there viewing and interested in the work. And I'm excited to see the way we can, even those who weren't selected, keep them a part of this project. And you can see, Terrence, you can see what you all are planning at the appropriate time. But it has invigorated and reinvigorated me both the desire and understanding about the ongoing continued engagement that absolutely has to keep happening projects. So thank you much to the Cura team, have been amazing to work with this process.
Oh, thanks.
Thanks for that comment, and absolutely, this engagement is setting the committee is really a first part of the process, and we're learning as we go, even now, really important. And I love the idea that every person who's applied is voting their interest, so we got to stay connected.
Yeah, but to that point, yeah, we're definitely going to find a way to stay connected for everybody that we interviewed, or nearly everybody that we interviewed. Because I mean, some of these folks have experience with being displaced, right? Some of these folks are at risk of displacement. Some of these folks are connected with, you know, populations that don't tend to, you know, have their voices uplifted in these processes. And so, you know, when we're thinking about, you know, experts in community who can help, you know, make real the research that we're talking about. I mean, we've met a lot of those folks already, and so, you know, very, very critical for us to keep them close to this work, keep their expertise and imaginations close. And so we really got a really rich group of folks that we're gonna be building with, which I couldn't be any more excited for. So really appreciate that.
Great. Any other questions or thoughts? Well, again, see Terrence and Felicia, thank you. This is really important work. This is what we're building, this corridor in a thoughtful way for everybody's benefit. We're having a good start. If there's no other comments or questions, I just want to point out that our next meeting is scheduled originally March 10th, but I understand staff are recommending we actually postpone and save our powder for April 14th. Then we'll have the final report and also a much better place to talk about our anti-displacement activities. So I think that probably calendar date has already been sent out, but if there's not any other questions or thoughts, we're ready to adjourn, and everybody gets 10 more minutes to your day. What a gift from the Blue Line.
Chair Zelli, George Selman here. I had my hand up, but
Oh, I'm sorry, I can't see. Yeah.
That's okay. I just have something I want to say. It'll probably take 90 seconds. With your permission. I received an email from a resident that really kind of consolidates what a lot of the residents of Robbinsdale have been telling us, or telling me in emails and texts and in conversation. So I'm just going to read this, and I'll preface it by saying this is from our recently retired police chief, who has been in law enforcement for his entire career, most of that spent in Robbinsdale. Thank you for your thoughtful considerations regarding the impact of the proposed light rail line along County Road 81. I strongly oppose this route through our city. It makes more sense where it travels through Crystal Brook and Brooklyn Park, where it is basically running down the middle of an open highway. In Robbinsdale, however, it runs right through the heart of our city, and in my opinion, will destroy a beautiful community. The council has worked so hard for many years to improve our downtown area. It would be a travesty to see it torn apart. It seems to me that it would make more sense to serve the same purpose to have express buses run up and down 81. Plus, with changes to the workforce, where people are working more from home in lieu of traveling downtown to offices, it begs the question of whether light rail transit is even necessary anymore. I also personally feel crime will be an issue. It doesn't appear that Metro Transit Police are being allowed to utilize to deal with the crime and the quality of life issues on the current lines. This is a big reason I believe Robbinsdale residents will not use the line, plus the current boondoggle, and that's his words, that is the southwest line. I think proceeding on the blue line would be a big gamble. I know you already understand these issues. I just wanted you to know that I really appreciate your opposition to the current proposal. I hope the city will have some veto power over this. Otherwise, our fair, lovely community will never be the same. and then he goes on to talk about another issue. And that kind of, you know, as his name is Jim Franzen. He's our retired police chief, and a longtime resident of Robbinsdale. And it really accurately states what I'm hearing from a lot of residents. And I'm not looking to have a debate here with my favorite mayor, but I don't agree that we're past the no build option. So, and neither do many residents in Robbinsdale. Thank you for the time.
Oh, thank you, George, for sharing that. And well, I get emails on all sides of these issues, don't we? So, but I appreciate it. Any other thoughts, questions for the day?
I'm glad George mentioned Shep Harris, his favorite mayor.
Oh, I didn't catch that. I thought it was you, Bill. Thank you for pointing that out. There you go.
It might have been.
That was subtle. Well, on that happy note, hope everybody stays well and stay tuned and keep watching your emails. All right.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
This meeting's adjourned. See you soon. All right.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.